Hello everyone, welcome back to our session on disaster management. We'll be starting with fifth module today, and in the syllabus we have types of anthropogenic disaster, fundamental concepts of water pollution and atmospheric pollution. We'll be looking at water pollution, and as you all know, water is one of the most essential part of our lives, because without that we cannot exist on this planet. And so therefore this water pollution is a very serious concern. And water pollution is a contamination of water bodies, usually as a result of human activities. And water bodies include lakes, rivers, oceans, aquifers, groundwaters, and so on. Water pollution results when contaminants they are introduced into the natural environment, and this happens by natural phenomena as well as by the man-made reasons. And we are looking at the man-made and anthropogenic causes of this, and what water is essential for the existence of all forms. And I think some of the things are actually very familiar for you, so I'll not be taking much time for this. And I think you all know this breakup of the distribution of water and proportion of water on the planet. Like some 97.5% is constituted by the salt water. We have around 2.5 to 3% of fresh water, and among that 2.5% we have a substantial portion is occupied by this glaciers, around 68.7%. Then we have groundwater constituting around 30%. The remaining 0.8% is for the permafrost, in the sense some solidified or some frozen water which stays for some 2 years or so. And this may exist in some few inches of thickness too, and it can extend for some few miles, and that is what is known as permafrost. And we have only 0.4% as surface and atmospheric water, and in that 0.4% we can see that the major portion is occupied as freshwater lakes, and around 12% soil moisture, and you can see the distribution. And rivers constitute only very less percentage, and biota means all forms of life, either all flora and fauna, or the organisms and creatures and other vegetations. Everything occupied in a small region is called as biota, and that also constitutes some portion of the atmospheric water. And the fresh water can be broadly categorized into surface water and groundwater, as you all know. Now, surface water, this I am not reading through this. You can take time and go through this. And these are the some forms of surface water. Okay, and apparently not polluted. And on right side you can see different surface water or precipitation in different forms, like dews, mist, fog, rainfall, hail, snow, etc. Now just put a photograph there, and on contrary to that, we have other some photographs which indicates how much polluted our water body, especially in our country and a few other nations, where though we have some regulations and other other laws to preserve this water bodies, but due to some various reasons we are not able to do justice to this. And now the photograph on the left hand side it's a very interesting photograph taken in 2018 in Kerala, and followed by the flood incident, where this is actually the whole plastic debris which is thrown away by the river back to the land. So we put all this debris into water, and finally in a flood, all at once everything was thrown back to the land. Now there are other few these photographs. I hope you might have seen recently some comparison of this lockdown effect before and after this lockdown on river Yamuna as well as river Ganga. Now you can find similar cases in our locality also. Now the groundwater, which is a part of precipitation that seeps into the ground as a result of gravity and fills the pores between soil particles and rocks under, it is called as a groundwater, and the water bearing layer of soil and rock are called as a aquifer. So that is one technical terminology, aquifers. And there are other variants also, like aquifer, aquitard, aquiclude, aquifuge, etc. So aquifer basically means some form of soil or rock which is permeable enough to occupy water inside, and at the same time we can draw water from it. So it allows it acts like a container. So at any time it will replenish, and at the same time you can draw water from it. And groundwater is very important for agricultural and industrial purpose. Groundwater in the form of wells and springs is often the only source of water supply, especially in villages and small towns. And you can go through that. I'm not extending it. One photograph on left hand side, it shows the groundwater source. When we have some tube well or bore well, we can reach to that groundwater source. The hydrological cycle, anyway, no need to explain that. Then how can we know that the water is polluted? What are the various parameters? And first hand, all that physical if there is any physical contaminant, we'll be able to easily identify, and especially with the color, odor, turbidity, taste, temperature, electrical conductivity. These are the physical characteristics which helps us to identify whether the water is polluted. On other side, there are when it is polluted, when there are some dissolved chemical contents in it, then that may not be always as visible as the physical contamination. There we may need to conduct some chemical tests and all, like carbonation, sulfates, chlorides, fluoride, nitrates, metal ions and all. This will have certainly very, very harmful effects on the people who consume it if it is beyond certain tolerable limits. And biological contaminants are like the presence of virus, protozoa, then bacteria, algae, etc. and now microorganisms. And now water pollution sources, as you all know, it's broadly categorized into point and non-point sources, and as well as natural and anthropogenic sources. Now the point source means they are the well-defined sources that emit pollutants or effluents directly into the different water bodies or fresh water. Examples are domestic and industrial waste, like the household waste, which we household and industrial effluents we directly dispose into water bodies, because these are specific point sources which is traceable also. Now, whereas non-point sources are scattered or spread over large areas, and this type of sources, they deliver pollutants indirectly through environmental changes and account for majority of the contaminants in streams and lakes. Contaminated water that runs off from agricultural farm, then construction site, abandoned mines, enters the streams and lakes. So this is like where the source is not traceable. The polluted water or contaminated water, it gets into some stream, or gets into some or public sewage system, and then finally it spreads across a larger area where it will be practically difficult to identify the spot out the location, and it is quite difficult to control the non-point sources. Natural and anthropogenic reasons. Our sources are natural sources means the increase in the concentration of naturally occurring substances is also termed as pollution, and the sources of such an increase are called as natural source. And siltation means which includes the soil, sand and mineral particles. Means if any naturally occurring substance, if that accumulates or gets concentrated, then that also will have an adverse effect, and that can be termed as a natural pollution. And siltation is an example of this natural pollution, deposition of smaller particles, finer particles. Then anthropogenic or man-made sources means these are the ones which are caused by human activities that result into pollution of water, both domestic or sewage and wastewater, as well as the industrial and agricultural water that goes into the river, lakes, and then certain materials that are leached from the land by runoff water and enters into the various water bodies along also also belong to this category. Now, just a pictorial representation of this anthropogenic sources of water pollution. And then groundwater pollution means when the polluted water which seeps into the ground and enters an aquifer, it results into the groundwater pollution. So here groundwater is something which is not polluted directly or easily, because this polluted water has to seep inside, and probably the contributing factors are when we have contributing factors in the sense, if the water table of that particular region is at a very high level, then this contaminated water on the surface can get connected to the subsurface water, and that is one of the easiest way. And the other thing is like the nature of soil could be one of the reason, because some types of soil will be of high permeability, so that can accelerate and in this infiltration of water in that. In groundwater, groundwater is the only source of drinking water for most of the villages. Okay, then groundwater gets polluted in a number of ways, like dumping of raw sewage on soil, seepage pits, and septic tank, which cause pollution of groundwater. Then porous layers of soil hold back soil particles while the liquid is allowed to pass. Means the solid particles in that contamination or sewage will be retained by the soil, and at the same time the water will be seeping into the soil. And soluble pollutants are also able to mix with the groundwater, right? And then excess use of nitrogenous fertilizers and unchecked release of toxic waste and even carcinogenic substances by industrial units may result in slow trickling down through the earth's surface and mixing with the groundwater. So this problem, okay, now that we have discussed, is more prominent on that pervious soil. And the groundwater with the groundwater which can move over large distance, sorry, there's a spell correction, which can move over large distance by virtue of the large empty space available below the earth's surface. So there is a movement possible, a subsurface movement of water, which can also result into this groundwater pollution. And this way, if some impurities they seep into the groundwater at one point, they may be observed at a different point, far removed from the point of source. And in such a case, it is difficult to estimate the source of water pollution. However, suspended impurities and bacterial contaminants are removed in the process of seepage by the soil acting as absorbent and filters, and water acting as solvents. Since the movement of groundwater through the porous rock is very slow, pollutants which get mixed with the groundwater are not readily diluted, and groundwater does not have access to air. Therefore, oxidation of pollutants into harmless products in groundwater does not occur. So there are various reasons. One is there's aerobic decomposition and anaerobic decomposition. For all the pollutants to decompose, there are some aerobic bacteria could help in that. But if in the disadvantage with the groundwater is that there is a lack of presence of oxygen, and therefore this oxidation cannot take place, and that aerobic decomposition cannot happen to that. So these are all some of the disadvantages of this groundwater. Groundwater and causes of groundwater pollution. Now we'll continue in the next videos. Thank you.